Have you ever sat in silence and wondered why you feel like something inside you is wrong? Why you push away the people who get too close? Why your heart tenses at the sound of love? Why peace feels unfamiliar and chaos feels like home? Let me tell you something no one told you when you needed to hear it most. You are not broken. You're not unlovable. You're not too damaged. You are a soul with scars, not because you failed, but because you survived. And somewhere along the road of survival, you made choices. Invisible ones, unconscious ones. You learned how to stay quiet when your truth burned in your chest. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You chased love in all the places that reminded you of pain. That wasn't weakness. That was your inner intelligence, adapting, protecting, building armor out of your own shadow. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But that's what this journey is about. Not fixing yourself, not becoming someone new, but turning around. Facing the parts of you that you've buried and realizing they were never your enemy. They were your guardians. Your shadow isn't here to destroy you. It's here to show you where you were hurt, where you were unloved, and where your healing begins. So in this journey, we won't shame the darkness. We'll listen to it. We won't silence the pain. We'll let it speak. Because the truth is, you're not broken. Your shadow is just trying to protect you. And maybe, just maybe, it's time you stopped running from it and started coming home. You are not ruined. You are not too much, too late, or too far gone. What you are is carrying a story, one that your conscious mind never agreed to, but your soul has lived every day. And somewhere in that story, your shadow was born. We are taught from a very young age to be good, to smile even when we're hurting, to stay quiet when something feels wrong, to behave, adjust, fit in, even if it means betraying what's real inside us. We learn to survive long before we learn to live. And this is where the shadow begins to form. Imagine a child, maybe 5 or 6, full of feeling. One day they run into the room, crying. Something's hurt them. Maybe it's small, maybe not. But instead of arms wrapping around them, they hear, "Stop crying, you're being dramatic." Or, "You'll be fine, don't make a scene." In that moment, something deeply human is interrupted. The child doesn't just stop crying, they begin to associate emotion with rejection. They don't say to themselves, "My caregiver is emotionally unavailable." They say, "My feelings are bad. I'm bad." And so, a piece of them gets tucked away. The sadness, the sensitivity, the need for comfort, it all gets buried. Not because the child is wrong, but because love felt conditional. That's when the shadow takes its first breath. Carl Jung described the shadow as the thing a person has no wish to be. But the shadow isn't evil. It isn't your darkness. It's your exiled self. The part of you that had to go into hiding just so you could keep receiving love, care, and safety, or at least the illusion of it. In reality, your shadow holds all the parts of you that once said, "I feel scared, I need help, I want to be seen, I don't agree, that hurt me, I deserve more." But these truths were too loud for the world around you, so you shut them down. You smiled instead. You made yourself smaller. You became likable. You became safe. And in doing so, you began to split from your wholeness. You grew up, and the world kept applauding your mask. The adult who always pleases others but feels resentful. The partner who runs away when love starts to feel real. The friend who's always calm, but secretly carries oceans inside. The strong one who never cries but can't sleep at night. These aren't flaws. These are survival responses. You're not living fully. You're living around your shadow. And it hurts, not because you're weak, but because you've been disconnected from your truth for so long, you think something is wrong with you. But again, you are not broken. You're protecting the child who learned, I have to hide who I am to be loved. You wear a smile, but inside you feel like a ghost. You function, you achieve, but deep down you feel hollow. Why? Because your nervous system remembers everything. It remembers how love once meant rejection, how safety once meant silence, and it's trying to keep you safe, even now. We all wear masks. Some call it personality, some call it maturity, but most of the time, it's protection. We wear it so well, we forget we ever had another face. That real face, the one you were born with. It didn't disappear. It's just waiting. Waiting behind every fake smile. Waiting behind every automatic, I'm fine. Behind every pattern of fear is a child who needed safety. Behind every mask is a face that wasn't allowed to be seen. You didn't become the pleaser, the peacemaker, the high achiever because it brought you joy. You became it because it kept you close to love, or the illusion of it. But every time you abandon yourself to be loved, you deepen the wound, not just of being rejected by others, but of rejecting yourself. That pain, that hollowness, it's not failure. It's your shadow asking, will you come back to me now? Every trigger, every overreaction, every panic is a whisper, a breadcrumb, a signal. Your shadow isn't punishing you, it's reminding you of what still hurts, of what was never healed, of what you buried to survive. That person who didn't text you back and now you feel like you're unworthy, that's not about them. That's your old abandonment wound asking, am I enough yet? That friend who made you feel invisible, that's not new. That's your inner child remembering the day she stopped speaking because no one was listening. But now, you're listening. Now, you're here. And this time, you can say to her, you don't have to protect me anymore. I'm ready to feel what we couldn't feel back then. Healing doesn't come through logic. It comes through love, through presence, through saying, I see you. I believe you. I won't leave you again. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to become someone new. You need to come home to the you that's been waiting beneath it all. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your story. And the more you listen, the more you'll see you were never broken. You were protecting something sacred. You were protecting something sacred. That sacred thing is you. Not the you the world shaped. Not the you who had to earn love by shrinking, but the you who felt deeply. The you who asked too many questions. The you who couldn't stop feeling everything. The one who was told, you're too much, until you believed it. So you buried your fire and called it control. You silenced your voice and called it peace. You carried everyone else's pain and called it love. But what if that was never your job? What if your real strength isn't in how much you carry, but in how honestly you can feel? You see, the world taught you that strength was about endurance. Smile through it, push through it, outwork the pain, outperform the fear. But that kind of strength, it only delays the collapse, because eventually the pain you avoid becomes the lens you see life through, and the longer you hold it in, the heavier it gets. Until one day, someone touches a nerve you didn't even know was exposed, and you break. Or rather, you finally feel. And that's not a breakdown. That's the moment you begin again. That's when the old self starts to crumble. The one who always had it together, who never said no, who held the smile while dying inside. That self, it's exhausted. And your shadow knows. It's not trying to punish you. It's begging you to stop pretending. Because pretending is lonely. Pretending is painful. Pretending keeps you away from your own soul. We often say we're afraid of being rejected, but deeper than that, we're afraid of being seen. Fully, raw, unedited. Because if someone sees all of us, the neediness, the anger, the shame, and walks away, then what are we left with? But the truth is, no one can reject your whole self. if you don't reject it first. Your shadow wants to be loved, not fixed, not healed like it's a problem, just loved. Can you do that? Can you hold the trembling parts of you and say, "You're safe now. You don't have to hide anymore"? That's the work. That's the path home. Think of the parts of you you've judged the most: the jealousy, the anger, the sensitivity, the desperation for love. Now ask yourself, when did those parts first appear? And what if they're not flaws? What if jealousy is just your inner child saying, "I'm scared they'll leave me behind"? What if anger is the voice that was silenced too long? What if desperation is simply longing, the kind that was never met with warmth? We pathologize what we don't understand, but when you listen closely, you realize there's nothing wrong with you. There's just so much that never got the chance to breathe. There's a kind of pain we carry when our parents couldn't hold our emotions, when they told us to stop crying, be good, calm down. They weren't bad people. They were often just overwhelmed adults trying to manage their own shadows. But a child doesn't understand that. A child only understands this: if I express what I feel, I lose connection. So they split. Not physically, emotionally. They become who they need to be to survive. And that survival mode, it follows us into adulthood, into friendships, into love. We say things like, "I don't want to be a burden. I'll handle it on my own. I'm fine." But underneath all that is one aching question. Let me tell you something you've probably never heard enough. Yes. Yes, the right people will stay. Yes, your messiness is lovable. Yes, your tears matter. Yes, your voice belongs. Yes, you are allowed to exist without performing. But first, you have to stay with yourself. You have to stop abandoning your heart just to keep someone else's warm. You have to stop betraying your needs just to look strong. You have to stop calling it loyalty when it's really self-erasure. Your shadow knows when you're lying to yourself. That's why it whispers so loudly at night. That's why you feel restless even when nothing's wrong. Because something is wrong. You're not being you. What if your life isn't falling apart? It's falling into place. What if the emptiness you feel isn't a void, but a space meant to be filled with your truth? What if your triggers aren't evidence of failure, but messages from the past saying, "Hey, there's something here you haven't fully loved yet"? Your shadow doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in patterns. Same arguments, same partners, same heartbreak, same inner war. It will loop until you listen, not to punish you, but to protect you from living someone else's life. Let's pause for a moment. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. That beat, that rhythm. It's you, still here, still alive, still trying. You don't need to become anyone else. You need to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You don't need more confidence. You need more compassion for the parts you hide. You don't need to be fearless. You need to learn how to hold your fear without letting it drive. That's how we reclaim ourselves. Not through war, but through reunion. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not the triumph of strength over pain, but the moment you say to yourself, "I don't have to do this alone anymore." Because you never were meant to. You were meant to be held, to be known, to be heard in your wholeness, not just your performance. But when no one does that for you, the invitation becomes this: can you become the one who shows up for you? That's what reparenting really means. It's not some abstract therapy word. It's sitting with the child inside you and becoming the safe space you never had. It's hearing your pain and saying, "I believe you." It's watching your own panic and saying, "You're safe with me now." It's holding your trembling hands and whispering, "We're not going to abandon ourselves anymore." You see, your shadow doesn't want to stay hidden. It longs to be integrated, to return home, to be part of your wholeness again. But integration isn't about logic. It's about love. It's about letting your inner child laugh again, without guilt. It's about crying in front of someone, without shame. It's about setting boundaries, not as walls, but as doors you choose to open only for love that feels safe. And most of all, it's about truth. The kind of truth that shakes, that aches, that releases what was never yours to carry. Here's a truth. Some people will never understand the war you fight inside. They will call you dramatic, too emotional, too sensitive, too intense. Let them. Your job isn't to be understood by everyone. Your job is to stop misunderstanding yourself. You are not too much. You are everything you were meant to be, in a world that was never taught how to handle the full spectrum of the human soul. But that's not your fault. It was never your job to make others comfortable at the expense of your own truth. So now, choose you. Not as a selfish act, but as a sacred one. Say no when your body says no. Rest when your soul is begging for stillness. Cry when the ache rises, and don't rush to hide it. Grieve, not just for others, but for all the versions of you that never got to live. The teenager who never felt beautiful, the little boy who had to be the man before he even felt safe, the girl who said, "I'm okay," while breaking inside, the young adult who chased validation because silence was unbearable. Honor them. You don't have to fix the past, but you do need to let it speak. Only then will the shadow soften. Only then will the nervous system begin to trust. Only then will the armor finally become skin again. And what comes after that? Peace. Not the peace of perfection, but the peace of presence. The peace that says, I don't need to be whole to be worthy. I don't need to be healed to be held. I can be in progress and still deeply lovable. Because this is not a race. It's not a climb. It's a return to your body, to your breath, to your truth, to the sacred self who's been whispering all along. You're not broken. I just miss you. So breathe. You made it here. That in itself is a miracle. You didn't give up. You didn't collapse into bitterness. You kept reaching, even through the numbness, even through the nights when it felt like no one would ever come, even through the ache that had no name. You kept going. That's not weakness. That's courage of the highest kind. And maybe that's what the shadow has been waiting for all along. Not for you to banish it. Not for you to fight it. But for you to turn and say, I see you. You've always been trying to protect me. But now I can protect myself. We can rest. You're not a project to be fixed. You're a home to be returned to. Let that be your work now, not becoming someone new, but unburdening who you always were. The world needs that version of you, the tender one, the honest one, the one who feels deeply, speaks bravely, and lives without the mask. Because that's not weakness. That's the light we've all been waiting for. And it was never gone, just buried beneath survival. Now, it's time to live. You were never broken. You were surviving. And now, you're ready to come alive. Welcome home.